Okay, so we're here on site ready to kick off the assembly of the ShedFast shed. A couple of things we like to do before we kick off, and that is, one, make sure you've got some ear protection. Very important, you're using drills and so forth. It's important to look after your ears. And the other thing is, of course, sunscreen. Make sure you use plenty, you're out in the sun, get a hat if you need it, protect yourself. And the only other thing I would like to mention is be comfortable with your own capabilities. There's a bit of lifting, it is manual work, the sheets have to be handled, and you have to be conscious of the wind and things like that. So just be comfortable you have the capability. If not, look to get some friends over, have a barbie, something, but make sure many hands can make light work. So with that, let's get stuck in. So the first step we're doing here today is doing the measurement of the area where the shed's going to go. One, to make sure that it is going to fit, that there's enough space around it to move around and move the sheets. We're not doing the pier holes or the footings today, but that is in our instructions, so you can have a look at those and get those measurements and information there. So we'll get to it. Okay. These are purely only a guide at this point. When the frame is up, we'll check even and square at that point, but this just gives us a guide for the area. Okay, so this is a typical ShedFast shed kit pack of the frame. What you'll see here are the connectors for the corners and the apex, and they're hot dip galvanised, and you can see the base runners here, they're also hot dip galvanised. On the frame itself, you'll notice the Australian brand, Australian made steel, that's all there. So the next step is to undo the pack, and you need to just be a little bit careful when you're doing it. Because it's under a bit of pressure. So you'll find under the connectors that I pointed out before, this kit has come with pier anchor installation. So there's the saddles, which are universal. They will be a saddle to go into a slab, a pier, you can chem set them, whatever you need. The saddle's universal, but the L bars, they are for the pier, and I'll show you how they go together later, but they're in the kit as well. What we've got here are the two B rails, and they go to the back. So we put one, we'll just put one down on here, just like that. And then an A rail to the front. Here, you can see the difference if you walk to the front, Rob. You can see the difference, 3 spigots, the connector little leg here. They go together like that. When they're together, that gives you your 1.5 spacing. In your corner kits, you've got corners and apexes. Also in here are the 2 connector rails for the base runners. If you've got extensions for a longer shed, there'll be more of these. So we use one of these here. So we've got the A rail here, this is the B rail, and that's the connector. So you simply move that out of the way, make sure you're on a fairly level area, and then grab it in the centre, and then just feed it in. You can look down, there's a hole in the bottom of that spigot. As soon as you start to see that, you know you're leaving enough leg for the other side, and then we just screw that off. So it just screws off. Next one goes in, and then the same again. You just remove the swarth either by blowing or brushing off, and then that rail's set, and we'll do the same for the other side. So what we've got there is these are the posts, and you can tell the posts because they've got flat end, a straight end. Every other end is angled. So we need a couple of posts to start, Rob. If you lay it down just on a flat section. So we've now got our apex spigot and the two, where the 2 rafters join. You simply take the spigot, you can see the angles match the apex of 15 degrees. So that slots in there, and you'll see it come up to the world. That's a close indication. You're looking for 5. There can be 5 to 8 millimeters gap, which I'll measure for you once we've screwed it off, to give you the example. So we put the first screw in, usually set the first screw back 20 or 30 mil there, just making sure it's flat. And then quick measurement, center to center at 125. Essentially now that measurement of 125, you'll see that on the engineered drawings that are supplied. Then you get the other next rafter now, and it just slots on there the same. And you'll see that gap there when it's in the right spot. We leave a gap there, 1, because the weld, we don't want to weaken the weld by grinding it back. 2, if there's any expansion in very hot areas, it allows for a bit of that. And also if there's any moisture that ends up inside the frame, it can, when it evaporates, it's got somewhere to get out. So there's a couple of reasons why we leave the gap there. And that gap, you'll see 5, that's 5 mil. So they can go up to 8, but 5, 6 is common. So no problems there. And then just match the screws up again on the other side. And we'll do both side corners now, and then you flip it over and repeat the process. Okay, so now the corner, we've just completed the apex. We're coming to the corner. You have the corner spigot, and then you insert that. Same thing, the sleeve. You can notice the different angle. Of course, it's obvious that it's the corner, and that slots into the frame like so. Again, usually coming up against that weld of the spigot. Okay, now the side post, keep it as parallel as you can to slide on. Bang, sits up there nice and tight against that weld. So now that's in place, the swarf, you remove the swarf, and then you go to the other side and you repeat this process. Okay. So that has completed this frame, this side of the frame. What now happens is you pick the frame up, drop it on the other side, or lay it down on the other side, and you put the screws in, replicating what you did this side on the other side. So there's 4 screws on each part of the frame at each joint. Yep. Yep. Okay, that'll just sit there. We've now completed the frame. We've screwed them off one side, each corner, or the apex, and then each corner, then flipped it over, done the other side exactly the same, and then put it up. And we've done that for each frame, and the frames are now in place. So the next step is to double check our measurements side to side, and then ensure that our diagonals equal. That way we know the structure is square, and we need to do that before we start the roof sheets. And the first part of that is to measure at the top, between the screws, and then you take that measurement to the bottom and take it along the base. Okay, so I've got 58.50 on this side, so go to the bottom now, and we're looking for 58.50 there. So we just adjust it out or in, pull yours out a little bit, Rob. Yeah, 10 mil more, 10 mil. Okay, so we've got 58.50 there. We'll go to the centre. And we'll go, same here, 58.50. And at the back, We'll do the diagonal first, yeah, let's do that. So front to back, so you want the inside corner at the front, inside corner of the base rail, that's it. And always measure to the same place. Okay, so we've got 8 metres here, so we'll go to that corner. 85-50, so it's not unusual to be out 300 mil and not really notice it until you do the measurement. So it's always important to check. So that's 85, so what happens is this has to go forward and that one goes back. So I'll move this one forward a little bit. Just do a remeasure there. Okay, can you push your one back a bit, Rob? Hang on, I'll help. Hang on. And 1, 2, 3, okay. So you can manhandle the frame just a bit at a time, no problems. So this process takes a little bit of time, but it's critical that we get it right. All right, so that's now square. I'm going to run a string line across here, and that just ensures that the frames can get all lined up when we put the first sheets on. Now that we're even side to side and square on the diagonals, we've got the structure square, we're just going to, because we're on a show site, we're going to just get the base runners level. So we're going to level it up so they're nice and even. And usually you do this when you're setting up at home with a bit of fall to one end, there's a gutter kit that can go on there to collect any water if you choose to take that option. So we'll just sort that out now. Okay, so this has got to go up a fair way. Yep. So just under here. Yep. That's sitting on the one plane there. We'll just have a look at this other side. The front's low on the other side here. Yep. Okay. So with the levelling up, you can level up at home. Even if you've got your pier hole here, you can still pack it to get it right, build the structure, and then you put the concrete in afterwards, put the saddle over with the threaded rods at the end. So it's nice and forgiving for DIY. Just important that you get this level with a little bit of fall. So always, once I think I've got it right, I always get back from the structure and look at it and say, visually, does it look right? Of course, you rely on your measurements and your spirit level, but it's always good to come back and you can see if there's little dips here and there. On a site like this, we can only get it as close as we can, but again, the structure's pretty forgiving, so it'll be all good. So I'm just going to run a string line along the corner here. It's a cross check because on the frames, you can get a little bit of variation between the frames. We just want to make sure we get them nice and neat as we screw off the first sheet, because the first 1 or 2 sheets just lock the structure. That string line looks good. There's a couple of tiny adjustments there, and what will happen is as we're putting the screws on, we can just push or pull each frame just to get it exactly where we need it, screw it off, and then it locks the frame. So we're good. So we've completed the frame, we've done the squaring up there, and we've been doing that with the 3/8 nut setter that was provided with your kit. You need to change that out now to your 5/6 for the roof sheets. So once you've done that, you then get rid of any spare frame screws you've got, and go to your roof screws, which are the coloured ones with the seal on them attached. So they're your roof screws, and you load yourself up with those ready to go for the roof sheets. Okay. Yeah, so I'll hold it here, you go up your ladder and hang on to it. You go up the ladder. So you just secure it there. Okay, so what happens now is we just slide it up. Yeah, we go straight up as high as you can. Just go up as high as you can. And then we'll clamp it because we've got to reposition. So look, when you're putting the sheets on, critical, you're conscious of how much wind there is on the day. You never let the sheet go completely, and if there is a breeze, you're always securing the end where the breeze is coming from. That controls the sheet. Many hands can make light work. Be careful of the sharp edges. There's all those little things that are important. And of course, when you're up on ladders, you don't go over that second bottom step there, never up on the top. So you bear those things in mind, and the roof sheets will run up. Okay, so now we go down, reposition to the centre. We'll just unsecure that, bring it up, bring the sheet up. So, just lift it up over the centre and centre it on the top. That's it. On particular size sheds, they'll start with a single sheet in the centre, as you can see here. It just folds over the centre and screws off in the high side of the pan. Now, these are on sheds 3.74 wide, 5.21 wide, and 6.68 wide, and 8.21 wide in the ShedFast range. They start with a single sheet in the centre as so. This 6x6 actually gets a join at the centre of two sheets, one sheet each side, which I'll demonstrate shortly. Okay, so I showed you earlier about the one sheet start for those sizes. This is how we do a double sheet start, and that's on your 3 metre size, your 4.47 size, your 5.59, and your 7.42 and your 8.89 metre wide. They're all the widths of the sheds that start with double. So you put one up and you secure it, then you bring your second sheet up. So the two large sides, one slips up underneath the other. So slip that under there, even it up, come this way. So what happens is we join those two sheets here, and then as one sheet, then as a joined two, we slide it up, and the join of these two sheets becomes the ridge capping. And that's how and then you screw it down, and that locks the frame for those sizes. So the key thing is now we get it nice and flush each side with the frame. It's sitting nice and neat, very snug in the centre, and then we'll move to screw that off across the centre point before we move it. So we just secure that so it doesn't move. We're happy there. Okay, so we put the sheets up, we've got them nice and even and level, and you can see this is the join here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a screw in along the top of that ridge at 1.5 metre intervals, lining up with each of the frames. And that just secures those two sheets together before we position it to screw it off. So that's secured on there. And then I'll go along and do that now on each frame position. I'm now just coming along from the end to the 1.5 marker, where I then put the next sheet joining screw. Now it's important there, when you're screwing the screws off, you can see that the seal's been compressed. You don't want to burn the seal out. If you go too hard and push too hard, you can burn the seal out. You need the seal to be there so that it does its job. It stops any water from getting in there, so that's important. So these 5 screws in this size, there's one each frame, so if you've got a shed with 7 frames, you'd have 7, but one for each frame. This is not going to the frame, but it's positioned on the frame, and this is simply holding these first 2 sheets together, and then we'll position those across the apex of the shed, so there's a sheet each side, then we screw it off to the frame. Okay, so we're positioning it there. So now we've got this top screw in here, holding the two sheets together. We position that so it's sitting above the join, so it's nice and centered. And then we'll do the first 2 screws, and then 4 screws to just hold this end while we set up the other end. The sheet is flush with the outside edge of the frame. If you've got a gutter kit, on the end the gutter's going, you usually would have a 50mm overhang, so you have to allow for that if you've got a gutter kit. The sheets are secured to the frame by screwing into the top of the pan. So there's the ribs here, and the pan. We're in the top edge here of the pan. So when water gathers, it gathers down the bottom end and runs along and runs off. So it doesn't go into the screw. It's important, any swarf that comes off the screws, you remove it. On the end here, you can just get it, but in the centre you might want to use a little blower. You'll see we'll use one later. Again, ensuring that you crush the seal, don't burn it out. We've now secured the sheets on both end frames nice and flush and square. We then come along to each individual frame, double check the measurement from the frame to the next one, 1500, and then secure that frame off by screwing it in the top of the pan again, leaving the last one out so the other sheet can slip underneath it, which we'll get to next. So once you've screwed it down, there'll be some swarf from the screws. Handy little blower here, just removes it pretty quick. So next sheet comes up, you see we've left this loose here, bottom sheet comes up, slips underneath. With the side sheets, we come up, once the overhang, you can see the overhang's just there. This sheet will go along, push up underneath that overhang. So you position it and you'll square the shed front to back at the same time. So we'll put this up. I'll have a look now. So what's going to now happen, we've got it flush both ends, we've got it tucked under. We're now going to screw it off just in the top corner at each end, and then we'll just check that it's square, and if we need to push the top of the frame or pull the top of the frame to bring the sheet square down the side, that's what we'll do, and once it hits square we screw it off completely, and that's the end. Before the end of the sheets. So I'm just going to screw this off. So we've now got the sheet pinned at each corner. We're happy that it's square. Take that off, and we proceed then to screw it off. And that just means that edge there just sits snug against the frame. Once your side sheets are on and sorted, all your sheeting's done, it comes to a flashing that'll come down here and tidy up the front and back end. So we'll just start with one side and walk you through how we do it with the cuts and the measurements. When you're handling the flashing, it's worth holding it upright in that V. It's the strongest way to walk around with it, and it'll stop it, help stop it bending. So we're just going to position this up here, let it overhang there, sit it on, and all I want to do here for this first one is just put it centre to make sure that it's on the centre here. And then I screw it off and we'll cut the next one to suit. So I'm going to put a screw in that now. So this has got a protective, the flashing has a protective plastic coating on it, which can actually be a little bit harder to get through, but it gives it a good protection. Again, with the straight edge, you're holding it onto the ribs, which gives you your outside edge, and that's what you mark at the top. So you can see the mark there, and that's where I'm going to cut. So support the outside a little bit there, cut it up, and then just ensuring that you're pulling this forward, peel it around, and straight down. Now, whilst it's being held there, I'll take my trusty set square, holding the corner, and this is if you want to. I like to put a little diagonal on there, so I'll hold that in position. If Robbie can just hold that at the bottom there. That's it, so it's snug. And then all I do is line up with the gap in the frame, and again just mark it off there like that. So pretty straightforward. Now let that come back out, and again cut along that mark. Now if you can pass me that, Rob, that little bit that fell off. It's worth noting that those little pieces there are very, very sharp, so they will slice your foot, your finger, everything open, so you need to make sure you collect those and bin them properly so they're out of the way. So once you've done that, you then fold it back into position. That texture mark, because it's got a plastic coating on it, that texture mark can be, you can then peel the plastic off if you want, but that gives you your corner there just like that, and then you then measure and cut the bottom here now, and then so I'll do that now. Once you've done that, I just line up with the bottom of the sheet here, same thing, using the set square, make your mark there, yep, and then that's it, let that go, and then we just cut that, of course. And that texture mark come off. So that is your flashing for this side, and then we just screw that off. And that's that. We then go to the other side. Okay, so what happens now, to get a nice straight edge up here, we just line that up. And again, usually just line up with the gap and take a line straight down. That just gives you a neat straight edge, and the same the other side as before. You just screw that off. Same again, you take a marking off the outside of these ribs to give you your outside edge, mark it, cut it. Mark the side. And just finish it off with that. Cut that clean, and we're done. You repeat the process for the back. And that's the flashing sorted. All right, and the last thing to do on the shed is a little plastic cap here. There's one for each end, and that just finishes it off nicely and keeps anything from deciding to make that a nice home. And that just simply goes on with a rubber hammer. And that's it, all done. Okay, so that's the completion of the assembly of a 6x6 shed with a 2.1 wall. Now it's a ShedFast shed kit. It comes in all sorts of sizes, and there are some variations in how they're put together, which I tried to explain through the video. But this site is a temporary site, so it is a little bit uneven and so forth, but it's a pretty forgiving structure, but still structurally sound. That's a real benefit. So hopefully this video will help you when it comes time to put yours together.